Morning, Mr. Blair.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Episode 7, this is Qatar. Sorry you're number 7, but I knew you were busy with a baby, and I thought number 7, 7-month-old James, it was quite fitting. I even decided to wear a golf shirt, a Doha Golf Club golf shirt, I hasten to add, and in one of your favourite colours. So I hope you feel privileged.
That colour really suits you.
Yeah, right. My father better not watch this. He'll lynch me from 3,000 miles away. Good morning, Blair Harvey. Really good to have you on. Hope you're well. How's life treating you now that you're a daddy?
Good, yeah. Thank you for having me. Firstly, I've been looking forward to it. Bit of excitement while the lockdown's on, but yeah, life's been interesting as a dad. It's been good. Probably more positive than I thought it would be because I'm getting to spend more time with the family, with the little one anyway. Maybe a bit more time with the missus can be a bit more challenging.
She's next door. Don't say it
she'll
too
say
loud.
she'll say exactly the same. So no, it's been good. Still getting out and about, still doing little bits and pieces, and as I say, more family time's been positive. I took this day one when the lockdown came. I thought it was going to be so negative and so disruptive to our whole life. But actually it's given us a bit of time to regroup and spend time as a family, enjoy that, and then look forward to getting back to the full flow of things, hopefully not too soon away.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. So I think we're about 9 weeks since we've been in lockdown, roughly that. Yeah, 9 weeks. Doesn't feel like it.
I think being where we are with Ramadan and things as well, it's been a strange Ramadan. It seems to have just flown past, whereas normally it's, as an expat, it can be quite a difficult month. So that was one of the positives, and now obviously coming into Eid. But I mean, it's been good. I'm trying to remain as positive as I can without knowing when it will ever change. That's the big problem for us, is the question mark. If somebody said, right, it's going to be 6 more months and then everything's back to normal, that would be fantastic. But who knows? Who knows?
It's the unknown. I still believe they've done, Qatar government have done the right things when they've been given the relevant information. We're in quite a diverse community, as you know, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7 million. The population is ever fluctuating. I'm sure it will go down when the lockdown eventually opens, and I do believe there'll be not a mass exodus, but I think there'll be a few people that leave and are forced to leave because of job security or lack of security, etc. But there is, because we're in such a diverse population, in essence, the amount of testing that they've done and the amount of cases, which are continuing to rise, we're not actually at the peak.
We're not there yet.
Government, they're continuing to rise. It's a frustration for us, isn't it? Because there's about 2% of the population have active cases, yet about 20%, less than 20% of the population have actually been tested. So proportionality of cases to testing is actually quite high. Where you look at the nationalities that have, it's been spelt out basically within a recent report from the government, the nationalities that have contracted the virus, they're primarily the blue-collar workers in a particular part of the city. But of course, we all integrate. Certainly in my industry, we're working with blue-collar workers and subcontractors. So there's always that possibility of contracting the virus, even though the majority are on a certain side of the city. It does make it quite difficult for us to understand when this lockdown is going to end and what we can do and what we can't do. But I think we're both quite fortunate that we're on a certain side of the city. You're in West Bay, I'm on the Pearl, and we can still do various things with our families. Have you managed to get out and about with James and Claire and walks, or has it pretty much been apartment?
No, every day we're going out walking. There's a couple of smaller parks within the city which are still open but aren't very busy, so we still get a chance to take a ball around and kick it around and stuff like that. But we have had the problem, especially during Ramadan, where if we walk for 10 minutes the opposite side of the city, where we still have a bit of commercial business, there's people floating around. And obviously Ramadan, Eid, is quite a charitable time, so these people are approaching us for help, whether it's to get some food or anything like that. And it's not begging, but it's just what happens.
Yeah.
And these are the people where, like you say, you can't put a direct line between us and somebody else. If it's going to happen, and I said this to my wife, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's really difficult to try and avoid it. We still see, we're in around quite a lot of construction, and we still see a lot of people on the sites, which it's Qatar's push to try and get things done during such a strange time. But at the same time, you look at it and think, well, I wouldn't fancy being across the road for the next 20 minutes while these guys are coming off of shift or onto shift. But we've got a lot of things coming up here that I don't think we can just press pause on. I think the companies, the industries that are managing this, I don't think they can afford to stop it. But I also don't think they've not taken precautions. I think most of the bigger industries have put steps and procedures in place to try and make it as safe as they can for their employees. And like you touched on, the cases, they seem to fluctuate quite a bit. They go up quite high, and then for a couple of days they'll drop, and you think, okay, maybe this is us showing a bit of positivity, and then they jump up again. So again, the question of unknown, is it always going to go up and down, or is it finally going to hit the peak that we keep mentioning in the news and come to some sort of progression to normal life again? But I don't see anywhere you go, even if it is, as you say, West Bay or the Pearl, the nice parts of Qatar, some of the nice parts of Qatar, there's still cases. I know my parents, they stay on the Pearl as well, and they've had a couple of cases in their building, and that it's not really changed life for them. They've just put out notices to say, make sure you take extra precautions. But you stand on their tower and you look over to tower, I'll not mention the number just in case, it's close by, and they're still using the swimming pool and the facilities outside. So I don't understand how you can have both sides of the pandemic, but it is what it is.
Tower. I know exactly the tower you're referring to.
I didn't want to mention
it. Just a topic of conversation with my wife and my sister-in-law, who my sister-in-law also lives on the Pearl. I think she's in the tower next to your parents, so fairly close by. And we often go for a walk with the children, and they often scooter on where we live. And yeah, this cropped up, much to the disgust and annoyance of my wife. Why are they allowed to do this? Why?
Is that disgust?
Does your wife do that as well? Does your wife do that as well? Ask you questions that you just cannot answer.
That's our job. Our job is to answer the unanswerable questions.
Joffy, why is their pool open? I have absolutely no idea, darling.
It's your fault then. If you don't know, it's your fault.
Of course it is. Go and find out the answer, Joffy. Yes.
But I walk into my parents' house, and my dad every day, without fail, he stood with his binoculars looking at it, going, they're still there. They're still there. No matter how much you look at them, they're not going to go away because you're looking at them. So
jealousy is a terrible thing.
I don't think they're overly upset because it's open, in the sense maybe the virus is at risk there. I think they're more upset that the fact their facilities aren't open. So we're the same. We've got a pool higher up than what we are in the city, and it's been out of use since probably 5 days after this all kicked off. We were quite early. But I would rather not take the risk and make sure everybody's as safe as we can and get out of it as quickly as we can.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I'm seeing on the news that places like Guernsey and Jersey, sort of back home in the Channel Islands, albeit not as big as Qatar, but if we can go with the island mentality, then hopefully we can get out of this sooner rather than later. But it is going to be difficult when you've got areas of the country that have such dense populations or dense communities, such as the industrial area and places further afield. Anyway, we'll come back and touch on the effects of COVID-19 on business and SMEs within Qatar a little bit later. But let's just, you and I started, we were introduced, do you remember where we were introduced? Obviously Doha Golf Club, that's a fairly easy answer.
Was it in a bar in Doha Golf Club?
No, it was not. No, it was not. No, it wasn't. It was actually on the it was in between the 9th and the 18th when Steve Ford and I were playing around, and we were pitching onto the island.
Ah, yeah, we did the boat challenge.
Yes, the boat challenge. That's right. To which Steve Ford still believes he got it in the boat.
Yeah,
I think he's clutching it strong. He's clutching it. If you're watching this, Steve, you definitely did. Okay, we've got a witness.
We saw the splash.
Yeah. He's coming back to try again. So let's give him another go. Make sure to set it up when this all settles down. But that's where we first met, and the golf club and a couple of bars, if we're honest, has been our frequenter. But we've had a good number of business chats, and we've kind of shared advice, and obviously we've worked together. You very graciously awarded us a project for the new Prosports shop in the new Doha Golf Club clubhouse. And that's where our business relationship started. But we've always had some really good conversations. I put out a small video just before you came on as a bit of a teaser to say that I was waiting to interview you. And I often ask you for advice. And I'm going to touch very briefly in a second on age and experience, because to me it bears no relevance. But I often reach out to you for some advice, and I think you ask me for some advice from time to time. Yeah. And I think we've got a very good mutual respect. I think you've got a mutual respect for me because I've survived in Qatar for 12 years. I don't know about the rest of it. But you've been here for how long? How long have you been in Qatar?
Almost bang on 4 years. 4 years. Which, to be honest, has flown in. And you hit the nail on the head there with, in terms of that respect between us both. You've been here for 12 years, and I think you've seen and done a lot in your time. I've only been here a third of that, and tried to kind of condense as much as I can into those 4 years, and at times it becomes a bit overwhelming. The way business is in the Middle East at times can be a little bit back to front, or not as straightforward as you would normally think. And those are the chats that I always feel somebody as a friend and someone with that experience that you can trust and sit down. Because a lot of the people that I would pick the phone up to and say, look, I'm facing this situation, can you help me to for the benefit of our business to come to the right decision? Sometimes they work on that little back to front, not as a straightforward method as we would hope. So I think it comes from being a bit on the Scottish side. I think we're all a bit more straight speaking, and we just go to the point and say that this is how it is. You get a lot of sugarcoating out here, and runarounds where a job or something for your business that could take a matter of hours or a couple of days can lead into weeks and months. And it just completely takes away from trying to be as proactive as you can. A lot of the time you're just putting out fires, trying not to fall out with people, trying to keep people happy. And it's not so much running a business, it's just maintaining relationships, because it is frustrating at times. And that's where guys like you come in, where I can pick up the phone and say, look, can we have a chat about this? You've probably been there in the situation. If you haven't, you probably understand it or know people who've gone through the same thing. And it's a small community of, certainly the expats that I'm with. I keep it as small and as close as I can, because Qatar is a big place. So once you start speaking to a few other people, it will spread quite quickly amongst the community. But yeah, that's really out of that mutual respect of, you've been here for a while. I know you touched on the age side of things, so I'm a little bit younger. You're normally playing in the older guys' football teams.
But yeah, I won't be doing that. Anytime soon. I want to stay off the treatment table. But no, I think it's important to, I mean, there's heaps of things that we could talk about, and I do a lot of listening on Audible, and I do a lot of coaching, and I know you've been doing the same. But it doesn't matter how old you are; it's when you kind of start that journey. Your hometown of Gourock, which is on the sort of the west of Glasgow. Would that be a sort of accurate?
Yep. Costa del Gourock, beautiful.
Costa del Gourock. So you came out here 4 years ago, but when did the business mind start to evolve?
To be honest, before I got here, That was one of the reasons I decided to come when I did as a PGA professional, when I finished or was heading towards the later side of my training. I worked at Glasgow Golf Club. Originally, I worked at Gourock Golf Club with a guy called Derek Waters, who was fantastic. He taught me everything about how to be a golf pro, how to look after customers, and how to run a small business. And then I moved from there to Glasgow Golf Club, which was a slightly bigger operation with 2 golf courses, slightly more employees. So I started to learn a bigger side, basically the same thing, just on a bigger scale. And there were 2 guys above me in the sort of ranking ladder, and then our boss. And I thought, if I'm going to be here, then it's going to be a long time until I can get the top job, where it wasn't, we're always salary driven, I would say, but it wasn't that. I just wanted to be the guy to run the business, and it was never going to happen, because it's John, who is my boss, is an incredible golf pro, really, really clever businessman as well. So he's going to be there a long time. He's only, I think, early 40s, so early-ish in his career.
So really young then.
Well, young enough, yeah. As far as golf pros go, I think that's pretty young. So I looked at it and thought, do I stay in Scotland and do I try and get on the golf pro ladder, where which is great. To this day, it's probably still my dream job to be back in a small golf club, but at the right time in my career, at home. So I looked at it and thought, how can I expand? How can I cover more areas of golf? And when you do your PGA training, it's not just about being a golf pro. It's business, retail, fitting for equipment, teaching. So they've now spanned the whole PGA training into, right, maybe if you can't play, or maybe if you're not great at teaching, then you can still run a successful business. So probably within about I was only at Glasgow for about 18 months, and about 9 months into that, I decided I wanted to be somewhere that gave me all of these opportunities. There's not many golf courses in the UK that can do that, and if they are, they're already taken by guys that will be there for a while, like where I was. So yeah, basically I finished. I did some exams, my practical exams, and passed them all that day, which was great. And then I finished my written exams, which were tough. But the big thing with qualifying as a pro, when you come to the Middle East or anywhere in the world, people are so attracted to you in terms of, we think you'll be good for our business if you've got the word PJ or letters PJ beside your name. So I finished those exams and went on the PGA website, and there's a section for jobs, and it came up with Prosports Qatar, and it didn't say too much, just basically stick your CV in. So that's what I did. When the general manager, Jeff, who's based in Dubai, he came back to me and explained a bit about the situation, where it was really different from the UK. We go in as a partner of the golf clubs, or we also do tennis, cricket, hockey, rugby. We go in as partners of these core businesses. So, for example, it was Doha Golf Club, and we manage all of their retail, all of their custom fitting, and we start to build relationships within the club on a corporate basis as well. So as soon as that was made clear, I thought, well, this is where I need to kind of be. And it basically went back and forward for 2 weeks of Skype calls, the odd email. And then I was working with my boss at Glasgow, and I got the email on my phone, and I could just see the subject saying, "To Blair, congratulations." And I just felt this weight off my shoulders, as of, this is the next step. So 3 weeks later, I was in Dubai, and 2 weeks after that, I was in Qatar. Basically handed the keys to myself and said, "Okay, let's see what you can do." And 4 years later, I'm still here, so something must be going okay.
And it's flown by, and seriously, I think we've known each other for about 3 of those 4 years, and massive congratulations to what you've done. And
thank you.
I want to know more about Prosports. I'm sure the viewers and listeners want to know more about Prosports and what the progression is for the company. We'll come back to that in a bit. So that brought you to Qatar. That career progression had already started. How has COVID, in a nutshell, affected business? Obviously, both golf courses are closed. So what is it that you can do as an organization to try and maintain that communication with your customers? And what have you been up to in the past couple of months?
It was difficult because, like I mentioned before we came on live, Qatar were one of the first to close down out of our business. So Prosports are active across Dubai, UAE, Oman, Kuwait, everywhere in the Middle East. So we were the first ones to take that step, and I think our head office team, our senior management, were a bit taken back. They didn't expect, especially Qatar being so small, to need to even put a structure in place. The good thing for us, where both of the golf clubs we work with, a lot of the partners corporate wise that we deal with, they were all very transparent and said, we know that this is going to happen and you're going to need to do something. So about 5 days into the lockdown, we put a really small, we don't really have the infrastructure for it in any bigger capacity. So we put in a home delivery service. The pros have been doing online lessons. The amount of guys, and you'll have seen them yourself, like Steve Britton, who I've seen for probably 24 hours solid hitting golf balls in his back garden. These are the guys picking up the phone saying, do you have home facilities? Do you have a net? Do you have, and I want new wedges. I'm saying to the guys, you might not be playing golf for 3 months, 4 months, however long it might be, but it's great they still want new golf clubs. And yeah. I think a lot of the support we've got is from the relationships we've gained being in the golf clubs. A lot of guys understand. My job when I first hit the ground with Prosports was to create. I noticed it was a really commercial business in the golf club, and I wanted to try and create our retail aspect as close to what the UK have, where all our staff know every member's name or a bit about their family or a bit about their golf. And I think when the times have hit hard, that's where that's paid off. The members have been great. They've called me and said, is everything okay? A lot of guys have even financially come to us and said, can we support you in any way to make sure, because they want the doors of the golf club open and they want a nice shop and they want the stock and everything else. And you need to have revenue coming in to be able to have that. So yeah, we've done well. Our home delivery's been really, really good. And again, that online, you'll see both of the golf clubs have been really active online with lessons or just trying to keep people updated with what's going on. I meet with my staff twice a week, and sometimes they just need to see a face and to speak to somebody and say, look, okay, it's still not good news, but here's what we're doing. The golf clubs got together and presented a really good video to Qatar Olympic Committee showing how golf can be operational under these circumstances. And for me, I thought it was perfect. There doesn't seem to be any more danger in playing golf than there is going to the shop, or there's much less danger. And you're in such a huge piece of land. We put in a procedure where you don't come into contact with anybody. So that's the only frustrations that I get from not only myself, but the members and guests of golf here is, well, we know how safe it is. We see now guys playing today. Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson are playing for $10 million today. So they can go on TV and they can play golf, but we can't. So the control is there. We're just hoping at the end of the month that once it comes up for review again, we can open our doors. And like I say, what we've done, the effect financially, yeah, has taken an effect on the business because our revenue streams have lowered. Corporate business is now non-existent. I don't know any corporate companies calling us to buy anything just now, but what they have, all of the events that we've had have all postponed their event until Q4 of this year, which is great. Normally under these circumstances, they would just put a line through it and say, we're not going to bother this year. So we've got the commitment from all of our corporate events and customers that we'll still have that. So yeah, Q2, Q3 might be pretty poor looking on paper, but come Q4, I reckon we can be much more positive come the end of the year.
I think Q2 and Q3 is very much development and planning.
Yeah.
What can you do to diversify the business? And I've actually got part of one of my questions was is corporate golf a thing of the past? So might as well just jump to it now because you've touched on it. The the golfing aspect that you mentioned, I 100% agree. The only time that you would relatively come into contact on the golf course, certainly in this part of the world, is by using the golf buggies side by side. Sorry, two persons in a golf buggy. So yes, you may have to have individual buggies. That then limits the contact. And then of course in the clubhouse itself, I'm sure they'll have restrictions and maybe one-way movements in this door and exit from that door. So I agree. I think there are fairly simple steps that can be put into place to allow people to get back to a sport that they love. I mean, you're looking at acres and acres over 18 holes. There isn't that much contact, even when you're looking for a lost ball. One person's in that direction, one person's in that direction. So I'd be fine. I'd be okay because I'd be searching quite often. But corporate golf. Now, corporate golf, I've attended many of those events or similar events, hence the T-shirts. And all the buggies are there. All the people are congregating. They're having some breakfast. And then, of course, there's an event afterwards. How do you think the corporate golf could potentially change with these, in my opinion, I wouldn't say they're unnecessary, but they're fairly strict social distancing when it comes to events post-COVID-19?
Yeah, I think I don't really know anybody, certainly myself, that's played in a corporate golf day for golf. You go to meet clients and to network and spend time socially and enjoy that aspect. So to be honest, if we were to open tomorrow and say, how do we have a corporate event? I don't think it's possible. I would love to say we could, but I don't see it being a way forward until we're completely clear. If you have, the whole idea is to have a prize given, have a bit of fun, have food and beverage. And like I say, the key word for corporate golf is networking. That's the only reason that I would get involved as a player or as an attendee of a corporate golf event. So corporate golf was always on decline anyway for the last 3 or 4 years. I've said this to a few people. I think there's this false sense of corporate golf and what golf actually is. People 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when life was great and stocks were up, shares were up, everybody was having a great time and companies were spending a lot of money on corporate golf events. That created this false image of, okay, this is golf. Your golf club can have 4 or 5 or 6 corporate events every month and bring in loads and loads of money for the golf club. That was when times were good, and as the economy has changed and decreased slightly as the years have gone on, so has corporate golf. And people now are saying, okay, corporate golf is, so I know in the UK it's quite small now in comparison to what it was, but that's what golf always has been. We had a peak of corporate golf about 10 years ago, and I think that some of the best corporate golf days you would have had would have been about that time, where companies are just saying, okay, we'll write a check, have everything you want, however many players, however many meals, prizes. So I feel like now going back to corporate golf is where we were 20 years ago, where I wasn't involved in the industry. I was too young, but I know that that's what the industry was like. It was almost non-existent. So I think that's where we are right now, where it's not an option if we were to open, sadly. But again, Q4, if we can open it and be quite positive, I think we'll open before Q4. Don't hold me to that, but I feel like we will get open given what the government have produced. And by that time, we should be a bit more relaxed on what social distancing rules we have to enforce. But I mean, if it is, by that time the weather's better, people can walk around the golf course, they don't need to share buggies. People have come up with great initiatives of how you get the ball out the hole, how you rake bunkers, things like that to avoid as much contact as possible. So it was good. I saw one of the golf courses just took all the hazards out of play, so you didn't need to go in. But that's my type of golf. I could be playing that.
That's definitely my type as well. My hazards are actually the flag and the ball, not the bunkers and the rough. So never mind. For someone that surrounds themselves, so you've been in golf for how many years? When did you start playing?
I was maybe 11 or 12, so 15, 16 years ago. Okay,
so for the past 15, 16 years, you've surrounded yourself in golf. You're now working in a golf society, a golf industry, whether it be retail or corporate golf. You still try and play, I'm obviously talking prior to COVID, you try and play, you are a professional. What does Blair Harvey like to focus on? So what's COVID-19 allowed you to focus on because you can't focus on golf? And what are your sort of pastimes? What's your passions, sort of business passions out with golf?
I've always been interested to try and create a portfolio of different things that we can do. And yeah, I'm still young enough where I just want to learn about them. I've taken a lot of time I never used to read, so I've started reading a little bit more. Podcasts are great. It's the lazy way of reading, or audiobooks as well is brilliant. But what I did just before this all started was just start to expand my network, especially with local contacts here, and just find out about businesses I've never had any interest or any idea about, and see how they structure and how they model themselves to be successful. And there's some really, really small companies that are mega successful out here, and you look at their model, and it couldn't be any more simple. It's the most straightforward sort of step-by-step guide of how to open a business, how to run it, and how to be successful. And you can apply that to so many other things. And for the last 5 or 6 weeks, I've basically put that together and thought, what could I apply that to? Is there something in the golf industry that hasn't been done that we could do? Is there something in other industries that we could maybe touch on and expand into? One of the big things was a superstore effect of golf. In Qatar, it's the golfing population of Qatar. There's only about 1,000 golfers, 1,000 to 1,200 golfers, and out of 2.7 or 2.8 million, that's not that much.
No.
But there's still people buying, and I've seen members go on their phone when they're playing golf and order things from the UK or from South Africa, and where the market is a little bit cheaper. And some things can be more expensive here, some things can be cheaper. But we put into practice last year in Dubai a company called Golf Superstore, and it basically, with all the golf clubs we have in Dubai, we merged that into a shop just to see. It wasn't really a thing that people wanted or were asking for, but we just thought we would try it, and it's been so successful. We see a rise in people even showing an interest in golf. Golf has this, and I'm circling back to why this sort of 5 or 6 week period of how I've used the time. Golf is quite an unattractive sport. It's really difficult to take up and be successful with just to play on an amateur basis. So people are scared away from it from day one. Kids don't really want to pick it up because it's not football. It's not Ronaldo on TV and stuff like that. So that's what they see as an exciting sport. But what that Superstore allowed us to do was put stock in and put product in that can attract these people in. So it's not like they have to show up at a golf course and they don't know how they should dress, who they speak to, where they go. It's basically like, okay, it's not quite on Carrefour scale, but it's a small warehouse. You go in, if you like something, you take it. You can go in shorts and t-shirt. You can try everything out. And we said, okay, does Qatar have a space in the market to do something like that? And the demographic of 1,000 golfers or just over 1,000, you would think no. But for me, when I look at putting a business plan in place for something like that, I think it could really grow the interest of golf, especially local golf. Local Qataris don't want to go to the golf clubs because they feel that's an expat community. It's an expat sport, which is wrong. It's not at all. It's for everybody. And what we had the huge benefit of this year at the Qatar Masters was Sheikha Moza, her Highness came along. She took maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes to go around the whole facility. She's huge on education, and she was so interested to find out how golf can develop education and sport and well-being. And I was so impressed. I spent about 5 minutes with her on the custom fitting of equipment, and she was asking me questions that a couple of them I didn't have the answer to. And I'm thinking, God, I need to pull something out here. And that positive encouragement, again, was straight after Qatar Masters. And we thought we're going to hit the ground running here. And that happened to be the last European Tour event of before the lockdown. Yeah. So we didn't get the full benefit of her face being put on the sport. But I think once we open again, that's part of my plan, is to make sure we publicise that as much as we can and say, the mother of the Emir, she's come, she's been so pleased with what we've got, excited by it, interested. So everybody should be coming along. And it's just that sense of where can we expand to without over expanding and putting too much on our hands. So stuff like trying to open a Superstore based retail outlet, or whether it's trying to use that local influence to grow the sport and grow the interest. Because honestly, I think there's less than 50 local golfers in the country, and they have a national team, they have a national facility, they have national coaches who are great, but there just seems to be this lack of interest. And tennis is big here, football's big here, and it's how do we get golf over the line? And that's been part of my COVID brainstorm, is how can we just make it a sport that they want to do. It's difficult, but we're getting there.
The numbers are quite surprising. When you mentioned 1,000 to 1,200, when you consider the amount of, when you consider the popularity of just attending the golf club, whether it be on a social scene, whether it be on golf societies, whether it be on the corporate events, or of course members, that number is much lower than I would have expected.
Yeah, it's lower than I thought it would be, and that was when I was last told it was around about the 1,200 mark. And that's not a secret for anybody. People know that jobs, especially now, jobs are uncertain. Disposable income's not as great as it once was. Corporate golf, again, guys would come on packages for different businesses who would have a golf membership as part of their package, and we don't have that anymore. And it's a shame, because these guys want to support the golf club as well. If I know a couple of oil and gas industry based members who have now left because they don't want to pay their membership, because they don't know how long they're going to be here, or they're on the edge of retiring. And should they spend the money on a membership, or should they save it so that when they move to their house in Spain or wherever it would be, they've got an extra however long of living or inheritance or whatever they want to use the money for. So it's been a difficult one to make more attractive and make that number grow. But certainly both of the golf clubs are doing really good things, initiatives to try and pull in. Both clubs have a really strong junior section, and that's something as a kid I would sometimes get dropped off before school in the morning and go and play golf, go to school and then come back to the golf club after. That was something that I really missed out on here. And I remember one of the days I went home back to Guruk, and I looked out the window, and there must have been like 70 kids walking up the first fairway to go and have some coaching. And I thought, if you could do that in the Middle East, or certainly in Qatar, that's the future of your game, is growing it from the youngest 4 or 5 year old golfer up to 18, and then maintaining them when they go into a senior membership. But I think it will grow. I think once that this we'll have some members drop, we'll have corporate events drop off through this situation. But once we do open the door, I think there'll be a lot of excitement from people to say, okay, we've been locked in for however long, let's go out and do different things now, and we'll get a lot of golfing from that.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is giving the fairways and the greens,
courses are immaculate,
to flourish and as you say, repair itself. And I think it would be amazing to have, and it's going to be a long way away, but just purely because of the amount of people that it would take, and with social distancing that's going to be enforced. But it would be a fantastic atmosphere to have a golf day, to have the academy kids coming in, to have all the societies be there. Yes, to play golf, but just to be there as an event. You've got a lovely green
all in one day
to the left-hand side all in one day, and we all completely understand that that's not going to be feasible for the short term, but in the long term, to have that introduction or reintroduction to golf in Doha, whether it be educational, whether it be Doha Golf Club, or both, to come together and try and pull that number up to 1,500, 1,800, 2,000, and try and gain that momentum, both from an adolescence perspective as well as experienced members, and of course the academy. I think it would be an amazing event.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's going to take some time for that to happen, unfortunately. So we've gone through your journey of when you came to Qatar. 4 years has flown by. Prosports have grown from strength to strength. You've had a number of relationships throughout the last few years, not only with Doha Golf Club, but Education City Golf Club. Education City Golf Club were fortunate to host the Masters a year ago. What was that experience like? It was a lot quieter, but I think the course did well to handle it.
I thought this question might come up. It was a very, very different Qatar Masters. So, as you know, having been here, Commercial Bank have been good enough. They've continued to sponsor the event for, I think last year was this year was their 23rd year. And that's a huge investment from their side. And great tournament. It's changed around in the diary of golf a little bit. So the field of players we've began to get has slightly changed. A lot of guys, when they finish playing in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, they like to just go home and practice or have a bit of rest. So the way the diary's changed in the schedule, and we're trying to get it back to where it once was, we've lost out on some of the higher end players that might bring some bigger crowds. And interestingly, this year we had some good players. I think I counted, and there was about 18 Ryder Cup players, 17 or 18 Ryder Cup players playing, which is massive. That's as big an event as you'll ever get in the world of golf. And they want to come. I was so impressed. They wanted to come to Qatar, and they wanted to come to a golf course that has never hosted a European Tour event. So Doha Golf Club did a tremendous job of the event for the 20 or 21 years or 22 years that they had it. And I believe it will go back. I think it might rotate. There's nothing confirmed, but I'd like to see both golf clubs hosting it, or coming up with a new initiative where maybe similar to one of the Scottish events where they actually play more than one golf course during the course of the week, I think would be interesting. But the big thing was, again, the corporate side. Prosports are one of the main sponsors of the event. Along with all of our retail and corporate business, we are the regional distributors for a lot of the leading brands. So we work with Titleist, FootJoy, Ralph Lauren, Greg Norman, and we put these brands in place to support the European Tour event. And we do that across the whole of the region. And it's always the biggest week in our calendar. And this year was just it was just a question mark. How busy is it going to be? Is it going to be too busy? The big thing, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I think the guys did a great job regardless, was the alcohol side of the tournament, that there wasn't any. And it's one of the only golf events I've ever known to not have that. And as a corporate sponsor, to try and encourage your guests to enjoy that day can be a bit more difficult. People like a freebie. They like to come for food and drink and enjoy their day out. Yeah. And that's what I would like to do, watch some of the golf, enjoy the hospitality. So when it came to the point, it was confirmed that there wouldn't be any of that social side. I think people shied away from it a little bit. But then again, I couldn't tell you the exact numbers of spectators, but the place was busy. There's still enough people around. A lot of local interest. Again, Sheikh Amoza coming, which was fantastic. That brought a lot of local interest. Sheikh Joanne was supposed to come, and about 5 minutes before his arrival, just drove past, didn't come in, which was a bit of a surprise. But he's promised that next year he would come along for that, which is brilliant. So it was a different event. The feedback from the bank was very, very good. One of the board members of Commercial Bank is a close friend, and he said they were delighted with how the event was hosted, how it was run. It was very professional, and all of their entourage that came with the bank, they were all delighted. So I don't know if it's in writing, but they did confirm in the prize given that they would sponsor for further years, but I don't know how many that would be. Again, with the bank, I don't know how the effect of COVID-19 has taken its toll on them, but they'll be, if we're having an event again in Q1 of next year, it doesn't leave them much time after we get through this and then trying to get another event in place. So it will be interesting next year to see what commitment they bring to the table. But they're a great sponsor. They've done a lot, and I think they'll continue to support the event. But it was different. Certainly from my point of view, we normally, again, we have the merchandise facility, we have the sponsorship of the event, and it's always a very busy week, and we know exactly how many people would be there, what they want, where they want to be. And again, it even came down to product. We bring in a considerable amount of product for merchandise, and we like to split things where it's the tournament logo, or it's the golf club logo, or it's both. And at a new golf club, which doesn't really have any merit to its name in terms of European Tour, how do we sell that logo to people who have never been? And we get a lot of people. It's great at night time. At that time of year, they pour in at 7 o'clock after enjoying hospitality all day and go, it's cold. I need like 4 jumpers. It's brilliant for business. But we didn't have that last year. It was, the gates were closed at 5 o'clock. Everybody was gone home because there just wasn't that social aspect as there used to be. But I think we've all taken that as a learning curve. Whether the alcohol side changes for 2021, I don't know. But certainly we know how to structure the public village better. We know which events worked and which events didn't work. We hosted some custom fitting of equipment for 2 of the days, and we were packed non-stop, and we did a lot of business through that. We've never done it before. We just thought we'll try it, see how it goes. And it was fantastic. So yeah, it was a strange event. Strange from a Scottish point of view. You're used to going to these golf events and seeing some pretty or unpretty sights. But it was good. For me, it's something that I can put on my list of saying we've done this event and it was very different from others. So maybe that will be a trendsetter. Maybe there'll be other events to follow suit in that. But I think the corporate side of business is where the event was just restricted a little bit because of that social aspect.
Yeah. Let's try and cut up a little bit, see if there's any frustrations that you can let out.
None at all. It's great.
So COVID-19 has obviously been affecting a number of businesses. We've been quite fortunate in which we picked up 2 very large contracts in February. So we've been, I wouldn't say we haven't been affected, but in comparison to many other businesses, similar to yourselves, where revenues from a retail perspective, because of the environment and the sector that you're in, we've been quite fortunate. But you said that you've been liaising and doing a lot of due diligence with other entrepreneurs and other businesses. What kind of feedback are you getting from, so let's say, the SME market and on how they are coping with COVID?
It's been interesting because the guys that I've brought into my network to try and learn from and try and develop from what they do, I'm closest to their local, whether it's the sponsor or an active CEO or managing partner. Having spoken to them, they're always quite relaxed. I think that's more the Middle Eastern way. They just say, okay, well, everything's going to be fine. Business will come back. Then when I speak with their operational staff, these are the guys who really worry. Some of the companies have made salary cuts. Some of the companies haven't made salary cuts. And seeing the difference, there's 2 businesses that I'll not name, but one has taken the option to fully pay their staff, and they're both still open, and one have taken the option to reduce by 30 or 40%. And that's fine. These senior management guys that are being paid a reasonable salary being reduced by 30 or 40%, that can be managed. But the guys who are only getting paid on the lower side of the payroll, that's life-changing for them. And the one that dropped their salary and haven't really looked after the employees as much as I thought, I reckon they'll close before the end of this. I don't think they can sustain it, not from a business point of view, but because the staff, what we are doing in Prosports is just trying to keep our staff as positive and as happy as we can. Somebody said to me, well, your staff are really getting holidays for free. They must be having a great time. I said, they're not really having a great time. They're locked in their house with nowhere to go. And like it or not, depending on your where you're from, the rules will be different for different people. And a lot of the staff that I'm employing are based from the Philippines or based from Sri Lanka. And if they walk out their house, and this is pre-COVID-19, if they walk out their house and they get stopped by the police and don't have their ID, it's a problem for them. But I've never had that. I've been stopped at I've been stopped at the roadblocks, even with COVID-19, where they're stopping to check, make sure that you've got a mask and things, and they just wave you past. And that's one of my frustrations in this whole time, is how the employees, not only in business, but how they're being treated day to day. So if you cut your staff salary by 40% and then they're locked indoors for however long, and maybe they do have the odd shift, maybe they get tips from that business as well, which they then lose out on, which is a massive thing. And then when they do want to go out and pop over to the mall to get some food, they're just living in complete fear. That's where, when I spoke to the other business who have just kept everything exactly the same, their employees are like, this is great. Can we do anything? Can we do Zoom calls? Can we get online training? They're really proactive. And that's the way my staff have been, is, can we do more? Can we go and do the deliveries for you? Because we're trying to keep them mentally. I think physically being locked in and things is not good, but the mental effect this has on people is just unbearable. My wife, I don't know how she puts up with me as well as she does, because that's pretty mentally destroying.
Many people ask the same question, Blair. I think we'll get Claire on the interview next week, just to see the other side of the tale.
But these SMEs that I've been, and on the opposite side, a lot of the big companies in Qatar that I've spoken again to, that I'll not mention names, the guys I've spoken to are like, yeah, this will be no problem. This is just something that we face. But I think that's, you'll have the same frustration, that Middle Eastern, just that level of how relaxed you can be in this. Yeah, they're almost horizontal at times, a lot of the business people out here. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's something that we should learn from. Certainly I've learned from it in terms of points of business. You need to be like that.
You could take the positives out of that. I 100% agree. I think, let me just start, we'll start with a positive, because you've been here 4 years, I've been here 12 years. We are in a very, very fortunate position with, well, the fact that we're Scottish. I mean, that just tops it all up. That's amazing, to say the least. But we're also from a beautiful country. We're amazing people. No, in all seriousness, we're living in a country where we're pretty much left our own devices. We're living tax-free. It's 40 degrees, 30, 38, 40 degrees, 100 degrees outside as it is. Yes, we're a little bit restricted. Where, and I think you and I are very similar on this, where we as a nationality and the type of individuals that we are, where we get frustrated is possibly it's not, exploitation is not the word I'm going to use. It is the frustration that I have is how different nationalities could be treated in the country. Yep. And one example and this is not necessarily due to the local nationalities, this is due to the people that are in powerful positions in their organization. And I'm going to give you one example. So again, no names will be mentioned, but there is a Filipino individual who I know fairly well, who came to me for advice, and he left one company to go to another company. And the company that he left owed him a lot of money, hence one of the reasons he left. And he came to me, doesn't work for me, but indirectly on one of my projects, I know him fairly well, came to me and said, I haven't been paid. I haven't been paid by my previous company. I then started to dig a little bit deeper. And basically what this particular organization, again, not the Qatari individual, but the management level individuals in this organization are exploiting the difference in, let's say, tier level of this particular gentleman, who is a Filipino gentleman, works very, very hard, is very, very good at what he does. And they're making up rules. They're making up, well, when you do this, we'll pay you. Or when you do that, we'll pay you. So I started to ask this gentleman some questions. I said, did you get anything in writing to confirm that you were owed this money? And for those that are listening abroad, anyone that leaves an organization, unless it's gross misconduct, are entitled to what's called end of service benefit or gratuity, which is 20 days of your basic salary for every year that you serve from month 12. 12 months and 1 day, you get 20 days of your basic salary if you leave that organization. It's called an end of service benefit. And this continues to grow year on year. And this individual was given nothing in writing to confirm that he was A, owed salary, and B, owed end of service benefit.
Whose fault is that?
To which I then turned around and said, why not? Well, if I do that, they can make a big problem for me. I'm sorry, I don't understand. So in one hand, I'm disgusted with the companies that do this because they push certain nationalities harder and harder about the amount of hours that they work, about the jobs that they do, and the packages that they offer are disgusting. However, what we also have to put into perspective is that these individuals or nationalities are earning up to 5 times, if not more, but let's put it as 5 times their salary from back home.
Yep.
So they choose to come here, they choose to work in these environments, they have as much right to do research and due diligence into the companies and into the roles that they are doing and into the countries that they are living in. And this is where it annoys me from a media perspective, that everything is pushed onto, so let's look at it from both sides. Everything is pushed onto the government. Everything is pushed onto the companies that are not paying these salaries, or these people are living in bad accommodation or bad environments. Whereas if you compare that to what they are from, where they are from, what they would be earning, it is a king's ransom that they're being paid, and they're living in a palace in comparison. So let's just look at a little bit of context. But back to the point at hand, exactly my point. The question you asked was, whose fault is that? Is it the individual who didn't follow through and get it in writing because they didn't want to, or they don't? Is it a belief system? Do they feel they're inferior because people treat them as inferior? Where do you sit? Where do you sit in this? Because it really frustrates me that companies act in this manner, but it frustrates me even more that individuals don't stand up for themselves. And I think it's a way of our society across the globe that even people like you and I are scrutinized as entrepreneurs and business people trying to do something different, and the keyboard warriors come out. It's exactly the same as these nationalities not thinking they are good enough because not enough people tell them.
I completely agree with you, and just for the sake of this conversation, because I think it is a thin ice conversation. You don't want to say the wrong thing to upset the wrong people. Yes. I don't believe, maybe in some circumstances, but I don't put any of this back to any locals or any government-based organisations. No. Genuinely, I believe it's management of an organisation that are typically expats. I know so many guys that have come to Qatar, and like you've said, whether you come from the Philippines or Sri Lanka or one of these countries, that we have a lot of our population in Qatar based from, it's the same thing as you and I coming from Scotland. We are fortunate enough where we're in a tax-free environment. The sun shines all day, every day. Petrol's cheap, insurance for cars is cheap. We can do things that maybe are a bit more restricted at home. And what I see and what I dislike more than anything in the country is the guys that are like you and I, and they feel like once they touch down here that there's something a bit better than everybody else. These are the guys running the organisations that treat their employees in the completely wrong way. And I think it's intimidation now. People don't want to ask the question, and you and I, yeah, you have to look after the business interest first and foremost. If you have an employee leaving, or if you have some sort of question over a contractual issue or a legality with an employee leaving or end of service. I've had it before where a staff member will come to me and say, okay, I want to resign. I've got another opportunity back home. Great, that's fine. But here's your contract. We stipulate that you need to do X, Y, and Z to be able to do this. And it creates an issue where they say, well, why? I didn't know that was the case, but their name's signed at the bottom of the contract. So maybe it's I know a lot of the employees that come from overseas to here, they're so desperate, and like you say, that they get a salary where they would be very fortunate to have at home. Maybe they just want to put pen to paper and get their foot in the door, and they don't look at it too much. When I got my first contract, I must have read it about 50 times, more than that, to make sure that everything was spot on. But maybe they know, maybe through rumour or from whatever research they've done, they've looked at it and gone, if I come up against a firm or a business of some sort where I want to leave and they hold the higher ground, I've got no chance. So I'm just going to take it as it is. And I don't think that's right at all.
No.
I think the more and more cases that we get of employees standing up, what I would say is that the Ministry of Labour in Qatar is very good towards employees. They tend to take the employee's side most of the time, even if it is something in writing. And you and I, if we are British, and I think one of Brits' good positives, but also a negative for being British, is we're very nice at times. And the same way that companies bend the rules to negatively affect their employees, I would rather bend them and say, look, okay, let's come to an agreement. Let's try and help you. And it's the reputation of your business. All it takes is, if you knew one guy, if you told me this guy's name and the company, that changes the reputation for them altogether. For the sake of looking after somebody, they've done their work. As long as they've done their work and as long as they've been a good asset to the company, I would have no problem if there's an agreement or a contractual issue, figuring something out to make sure that both of the companies get, or both of the parties get the best of both worlds. Not just we're the company, we're the bully. We don't really care what you say. But on the flip side, to play devil's advocate, excuse me, I do think that it's the employee's responsibility.
Yes.
I came looking for a job out here. So if I come looking for a job and a company offered it to me, that's really good of them. It's my job to make sure that whatever they put forward to me is right. The company can write whatever they want.
But you still have to sign the paper.
Problem.
You still have the opportunity to do the due diligence, to read the contract, to look at the roles and responsibility, to look at the remuneration and the salary. If you don't think that's high enough, then to request more, but then justify it. I've interviewed many people in which I've made an offer that based on the information that's been presented to me and the way that they presented themselves in an interview, they have said, no, I can't accept that because I can't afford to live on that. I said, well, why not? This is potentially 4 times of what you may be earning back. Yes, but I was paid this at my previous company. Okay, why are you leaving? I didn't like the job or the way they were treating me, etc. So is it about money or is it about career progression? So when you start to dig deeper, I think it's definitely the same for a lot of expats that get here. The shiny penny happens. They land. It's tax-free. They're living in the sun, and all of a sudden they're sitting on a throne. For many of us, and to be honest, we've probably all gone through that at some point. The first 6 months that you're here is just a different world. Yeah. Then reality sets in, and if you go into business of your own, then there's a few brick walls that are going to come in your way and a few bruises you're going to get. When it comes to the employees from these other countries, who are, we earn more as a tax-free basis than we do in the UK, but the cost of living is relative. It's amazing the naivety of some of these members of staff, where they seem to think the white face is earning that king's ransom, is earning you know, huge amounts of money. And in certain circumstances, they may be if they're working for multinationals and the multinationals are looking after them with bonuses, etc. But entrepreneurs in this country are under so much pressure to make sure that their liabilities are covered with checks in the market for rent, with staff salaries, with end of service. And one of my other pet peeves is the expectation of things like end of service benefit. So people are quick enough to leave, to walk outside your office, to go into another office within another day and pick up another job very, very easily for similar money, having not performed their role within your organization, expect their end of service benefit like that when they could have been the actual catalyst or cause for the problems within the organizations. And I know many, many SMEs through the communities that I'm speaking to that are suffering in exactly this way. Because people are in COVID-19, it's not necessarily the companies that are docking salaries or not paying salaries, it's the employees that are desperate to get out and they want to leave, but they don't want to leave without their coin, without their end of service benefit in a situation like COVID-19. And you think, hang on a second, how is that fair? So not only are you not working, you're at home, you're expecting to be paid in full, you've submitted a resignation, but you won't leave until you get paid in full. I mean, how is an SME supposed to survive? And the government, and I'm not saying the government are wrong, but the government are stating to SMEs, you have a legal responsibility to pay the salaries. Well, where does an SME, and a good friend of mine has launched an SME community that's got some amazing advice. Lauren Fryer has launched an SME community group on Facebook. If you need any advice or need any information for those listening and watching, go to the SME community on Facebook, where there's some amazing tips or communication from the government on how you can make those applications for the grants. But not all companies are eligible for that. As you can imagine, being in Qatar for the time you have, there's a number of hurdles that need to, and they are legitimate hurdles, don't get me wrong. There's a number of hurdles that need to be jumped over in order for you to be eligible for those government grants, those bank grants. So it's a no-win situation for SMEs. It's a no-win situation for the employees because they're obviously looking after themselves. But I do believe that the employees have got responsibility to look after their organization that have looked after them. And as you said, offer them that opportunity to come to Qatar or remain in Qatar and be paid the money that they're being paid versus the stereotypical wage that they would be getting paid back home.
I've never looked at it. I've never looked at it from that point of view, and that's due just to us being quite fortunate. Our employees that we've had, like I went back to with how you look after your employees. When the times have got tough for us and for other companies that I know of, the staff have stuck by us and said, okay, when it's been tough, you've looked after us. We don't want to put you in that position. Now, that's not saying we would trust every staff member in every business to do that. But, excuse me, interesting when you do say, we're always the bad people, the business owners or the guys that pay salaries. We're the bad guys that aren't, or are we paying, are we not paying, how much are we paying, or we're not paying end of service. But then at the same time, there will become this pattern of people who will just dot around and take end of service after end of service, and all of a sudden we're obligated to pay that, and that can completely kill the company, regardless of COVID-19 or any other issues that strike the company. So I've never really thought of it in that sense. But to go back to what you were saying with people seeing the country, seeing the benefits, and just wanting to get their foot through the door. A good example, I made a job offer to Scottish guy, really handsome. Well, handsome, not the employee, the offer that was made to him. Probably.
I wondered where you were going with that.
probably maybe 3 times the package of what he would get at home. Some of it was incentivized, but in our way of saying, okay, look, we'll get you here, we'll help you. You work with us, you bring benefits to the company, we'll bring benefits to you. And every contract, I've never seen a contract here that isn't up for an annual review. So if you are delivering for your company and you are performing, then there's no reason that If you come and triple our sales, there's no reason that we shouldn't be paying you more or giving you better accommodation allowance or whatever it might be. And it was funny because what I offered him, and I know this, you might have spoken about this before, what I offered him and what the power of social media has given him the perception of was so far away from each other. So he would see what I'm doing and what I have or who I spend time with and things. And that's what he was expecting that he would walk in with. And I came here day one and I've done a lot to get to where I've managed to get to so far. And when I made the offer, it was almost like, well, how do I get what you have if this is what you're offering me? So, well, get your foot in the door, but come and prove that. That's all I did. I got my foot in the door and came in and did the job and made a phone call after a year and said, look, here's where you were, here's where you are now. I'm justifying what I'm asking for, so why not? But they see that you've got your own pool in a building, which most people do now, or in the expat community. They see what car you drive, they see who you socialise with, and they think that this is the megabucks lifestyle, but they don't realise that there's still a justification. You still need to put yourself out there and still need to work hard to get to it. It's not just going to be handed to you on a plate.
I'm going to say something and it's certainly not directed at you, but you'll understand where I'm going with this. There is, with the power of social media, there is it is very, very easy to be a keyboard warrior and to be a hater against entrepreneurs and say what you want without justification. It's also very easy to create a false persona or an enhanced persona. And I'm going to call it I quite like him, but he's not my coach. JT Fox is my coach. But JT Fox is a very, very successful individual who throws himself behind his work, but does not create a persona on social media of what he has. There's nothing there, right. But I've seen what he has. But then you've got the Grant Cardone syndrome, where you can have the jet in the background and you can have the flashy cars and various things like this. And there are so many people non-genuine people that create this persona of themselves and this lifestyle that we have in Qatar by doing things like that, the Grant Cardone scenario or syndrome, where look at my pool, look at my villa, look at my cars, and it's actually the people that they are socializing with within this very, very, fortuitous community and country that we are in to create this false persona. And what I really, really admire about you is how grounded you are for your age. And this goes back to what I said at the very beginning. People should not think that age is a hindrance or a deterrent. I am 40 this year and you are 27?
27, yeah.
27. And there are experiences that you have had and have currently in this Qatar in 4 years that I haven't achieved in 12. However, within that 12 years of experience, there are things that you haven't achieved and want to do so. And what I really admire, and it kind of goes back to the whole, we spoke about employees and why they don't defend themselves. And I think it's because they are in awe and fear, but I think they are in awe of wealth and the sheer richness of this country. And of course, the way that a lot, not all of them, but a lot of maybe Qataris and younger Qataris, they're surrounded by so much wealth because of what infrastructure their elder generations have put in place. That, we live in areas, your mother and father, myself, we live in areas such as West Bay and the Pearl, and per square kilometre, I've never seen so many Lamborghinis and Ferraris. That's just the way this world is. That's what we're accustomed to. McLarens and Porsches, etc. It's the norm to have that. 4x4s and it's a lot of the employees and these Filipinos and Bangladeshis and Nepalis are in awe of the Qataris when they go to labour and immigration and the ministries. You as an individual have surrounded yourself with very successful people in a very short space of time. And I am actually on record in awe of how you have done that. And what I find very admirable is how you are not fazed by the people that you surround yourself with. I've seen your social, I follow your social media. I follow how your son has a better hairstyle than you. He has a better hairstyle than most of Qatar, let's be honest, and he's only 7 months, but it's amazing head of hair. And he's a beautiful child as well, definitely takes after his mother. But you have such a fantastic community of very successful business people, both within an expat perspective. You surround yourself with some fantastic sports people that you've become very friendly with, and you surround yourself with successful business entrepreneurs as well, me included. But jokes aside, that none of that phases you. And we are brought up in a modern day society, and I've been exactly the same. I was very fortunate to interview Vince Vaughn. I was, please forgive my language viewers, shit scared when I walked on stage. Absolutely petrified. And I was so scared, I actually took notes with me to make sure that I didn't go off topic. I did make him laugh, which was the objective.
That's it, job done.
This was Hollywood A-lister, and I had literally 3 minutes with him, if that. It felt about 10 when I was on stage. How does Blair Harvey cope with that? Were you brought up with people of success and sort of celebrity status, or is it just your persona that allows you to deal with that?
When I was lucky enough when I was younger. Again, when corporate business and sport was great. My dad used to sponsor a couple of football teams, some better than others in Scotland, and be involved in different golf events and things like that. So I was lucky enough that I met, when I was younger, some people I would have no idea who they were, but it still didn't take away from the fact that I came out here, I didn't know anybody. When I worked at Doha, I remember seeing Andy Gray come past, and I'm like, Rangers legend, Scotland legend, delight. That was the first time I kind of saw somebody and thought, okay, I'm going to be seeing a lot of Andy playing golf. What should I do? And I just thought, well, what's the harm in going and saying hi to him and just introduce myself, say that we've got a company here, and that I would be seeing a lot. And the first thing he said was, okay, let's go and play golf. And that developed. So I was lucky enough playing with Andy and Richard. Then their guests come in from BN Sports, and it's just playing golf with guys. I didn't see it in any other way. I would probably say when Ruud showed up, I thought, well, this is another level of celebrity altogether. But within 2 or 3 holes of playing golf, I then realised he's the most normal guy out of all of them. And I
just human.
What Ruud explained to me is he hates nothing more than when people treat him like he's now in a different career. He's not winning trophies for Holland or trophies for international clubs. He's now presenting. He's now got some other business ventures of his own. That's what he wants to be known for. So when we go and play or we do speak to each other, it's talking about work, talking about family, talking about sport, golf, football, tennis, whatever it might be. It's not about him. And that's what I quickly realised is, yeah, you could have the whole, can you sign this? Can we get a picture? Can we do this, that, and the next thing? They'll do it out of politeness for people. But if you really want to try and get to know these guys, they just want to be treated like any normal person. And I found that quite easy because we had the sport surroundings to be able to have that mutual chat to get things kicked off. The difficulty was I really wanted to be more involved with the Arabic community, local community, and that was difficult. I would say that all the locals I've ever met here generally are very nice and very welcoming and want to speak to you and spend time with you. The majority have been schooled or educated in the UK or in the US, so they have had touches of life that we've come into contact to already. And you meet some of the royal family members or some really successful local business people, and you are a bit intimidated because this isn't one of the celebrities who is on a TV show that might just not take a fancy to you and not speak to you. This is somebody who has a lot of influence in the country and can maybe be a huge benefit for your business and for you. I've just always been open and honest with them, and anything they want to know about me, and I try and make an effort. And I did an interview for the PGA about 2 weeks ago, and they said to me, if somebody was coming to the Middle East and wanted to try and get out there as much as they can, what should they do? And I said, just speak to everybody. I was listening to your podcast, and Chris said when he first got here, it was about Chris Douglas from De Beer, about, yeah, you might want to send some LinkedIn messages, or you might want to send some emails and calls. That's what I did. But before I got here, I knew I was coming. I found people on LinkedIn, found out whatever they did. They might have been in oil and gas, they might have been in retail, and just sent them some messages and said, I'm coming to Qatar. It'd be great to take you for a coffee and just pick your brains on how things work. And that developed, and probably the corporate side of Prosports has opened a lot of doors for me to become friendly with these people. And they couldn't be more polite and more kind, and I don't see any difference. And it's funny, I know exactly what you're saying with social media. Some of the things, I go to my friends' houses here, and they're 20, 21, 22 years old, and they're driving a McLaren. And that's great. But they all post the stuff on social media as well, but they all have it. They all have that wealth that nobody's showing off. If I post and say, when I first got here about a year in, I bought a car, and it was one of my dream cars to buy. Nobody knows how much it cost. Nobody knows how I paid for it in terms of, was it paid in cash? Was it financed? Whatever it was. And the amount of grief I got online because I posted it and said, finally ticked this off my bucket list. Really pleased to get this. And I got ripped to pieces for it in the UK. All my friends, and in brackets there, who would say, oh, he's taken on a load of debt buying this car. He can't afford it. Oh, it's not his. His parents have bought it. And I was like, no problem. If that's what you want to say and believe, then.
And what business of theirs was it?
Exactly.
None.
And I'd said that I then, about a year or 18 months later, I sold the car, and I thought, okay, what am I going to buy now? And then I spoke to my wife, and I said, should I buy something? Should I buy something that I enjoy, that I've worked hard for? And yeah, even if I don't post it on social media, somebody will know. I'll maybe say to my friend, okay, I've bought this, and he'll tell someone else, and the word will spread. And it's so frustrating. For another example on the same thing, my current car went in for a service early last week, 10 days ago. And I was at one of my local friends' houses, and I said, my car's gone in. So he said, okay, handed me the keys to one of his Rolls Royces and said, you drive that until it's sorted. Now, that for me is a dream. And that's how generous and kind they are.
I've seen this a couple of times. I didn't say anything because I wanted to hear what had happened. I wanted the context of it.
And I wouldn't normally mention it with an audience, but I think it's important because he's done that as a friend. I've done a lot for him, and he's just the same way I would. If my friend needed, and I was able to, I would. If you needed a car or whatever it might be, and I was able to do it, then I would do it. So he handed me the keys and said, there you go, just as long as you need it, just use it, no problem. And I was like, this is great. My wife was delighted. And I thought, I'm a big car fan. I thought I'm going to post, I can't remember, a picture of my wife and my son, and the car was in the background. And then a picture of my son sat on the bonnet of the car.
Did you send that one to your friend?
I put it on my story. I didn't post it, but I took that picture and thought, when he's 18 years old, that's a nice picture, a memory to have, because in 18 years' time or however long, we might not have these contacts, we might not have these chances. So put it on, and it's the first time ever that I've put anything like that on social media. I've not explained anything. I've not said it's mine or I'm driving or anything like that. And I had 2 people come back to me and say, this is incredible. We really, really like to see people doing well. And that's the first time in 4 years that I've had anybody ever come back to me and say that. On the other side, I've had people text me saying, this person's told me you've bought this car. How, even people in my own company with my own original car, saying, how have you spent $1 million on a car? And say, well, one, it definitely wasn't $1 million, and two, it's really none of your business. I know that same guy within our organisation wears nice watches all the time, and I say, I don't ask him how he affords those. So the power of social media can be really, really deceiving and create this false perception. But I think social media is great. I keep in touch with all the friends and family back home. And I think there's an importance in, if you're working that hard, it's still hard work out here. And you do deserve to look after yourself and enjoy being out here. The only way we can really do it, I see guys at home posting pictures of everything they buy, and nobody bats an eyelid. But if we do it here, then it's all of a sudden,
we've deserted them. We've deserted Scotland, and we've deserted the UK, and we've deserted the tax system, and we don't pay national insurance, or some of us do, and things like that, and how dare you, and well, hang on, we made a choice. We made a choice to spread our wings. I left Scotland, I went to England. I really enjoyed England. I wasn't too keen on London and the travel and going in and out, and I made a pitch to a company for furniture, and they turned around and went, chairs are too expensive, but your pitch was really good. Do you want a job in the Middle East? And bang, I end up in the Middle East 12 years ago. I then pick up one of the largest accounts with 2 single phone calls. I pick up a secondary account with 1 phone call, and I end up selling over £5 million worth of design and build and furniture within 2 years. I mean, this is not things that are handed to us. These are opportunities that you grab. You go to the relevant. Fortunately, I actually worked on tenders within Doha and Qatar, so I knew where it was, and that's why I chose Qatar over Dubai. I was offered a choice of either, and I chose Doha, and I don't regret that to this day. But social media has, I wouldn't say it's got a responsibility. I think the people that are on social media have a responsibility, but you're always going to have haters. You're always going to have keyboard warriors. I actually listened to this just before we started our interview. I listened to Rob Moore, but I listened to a lot of JT Fox. I listened to a lot of Rob Moore and various others, Simon Sinek, and Rob Moore turned around and went, "Stop all the hate." That was the title of the video post. And I then went into listening to it, and it wasn't about people hating on others. It was about people hating themselves and not giving themselves enough credit for what they actually do, because there's so many people out there giving you negative opinions that you feel negative about yourself. I can't do that. I won't do this. I started this podcast because my friend Stuart, who I'd actually said to him, I'm thinking of starting a podcast. He went, hit the record button. I went,
just
pardon?
do it.
He went, hit the record button. Do your first episode right now. I was like, what a great idea. And then 7 episodes later. Is it perfect? No. Are people texting me saying, fantastic, well done? I've not had one negative comment back from the fact that I've started a podcast. And a podcast is a very generic thing. I even had the guy that introduced me to podcasts last week, who I've been on 4 times. And as soon as I asked him, he went, I'm delighted you've started it. What was it he said? I'm glad you've got your arse in gear, I think was what he's actually said on the podcast. But he came on because he wants to see other people successful as well. Yeah. And I don't know why, and I know this is a loaded question. Why are we ridiculed? Why are we hated on quite a lot? Not all the time. I'm not putting out the negativity out there. Most of the messages I get are actually positive ones. I've got people from back in my school days. One person said, I always knew you would go on to be successful in business. Not quite there yet, but and you haven't changed a bit. That was really nice for someone that I hadn't even seen for 20 odd years to say that. People that are not in our lives anymore are actually commenting on the nice things. Why is it that we've got such a negative society and people don't like people doing well?
I just think it's jealousy. I had a call with some people a couple of weeks ago, and comments were passed on that call, and I stayed quiet, didn't say anything. And I came off, and I thought there was absolutely no reason for some of these comments. Not some like nasty, just little prods and digs.
Snide remarks.
Yeah, and they don't bother me, but I just wonder, like, why during this time where the world has come to a standstill and everybody's struggling in one way or another, why try and make it even more difficult? Where a couple of things I would come back and say to Claire, like, do you think he meant anything by saying that? Or, and she goes, yeah, just forget about it. But what amazes me is these are the first people that when you touch back down in Edinburgh Airport, that will phone you and say, where are we going? We want to do this, we want to do that. And they want both ends of what they can have. And it's become so clear to me, the people that supported me at home, and then when I came here, who were just fans at home of what I was trying to do because I hadn't made the move yet. And then as soon as I made the move, they were the first people to say, oh, it's never going to work out there. Never, like, Qatar's terrible. When the embargo started between a World Cup as well, it's a similar thing. When the embargo was set in place, I got guys phoning me saying, it's a really bad choice you made moving there. You should move back quickly. I'm like, the only thing that has changed for a week or so was the chicken. We couldn't get the same chicken. Other than that, it was fine. Qatar became a bit more self-sufficient. And for our business, yeah, shipping between our head office is expensive, but we've now rewritten contracts to be direct receivers of product. So it's 10 times better for us. So these are the guys that if you go back to a golf club or a rugby club or a restaurant or a bar at home, they will be the same guys talking the same nonsense to the same other guys with the same drink, and they don't change. They're scared of change. And we've got a charity called Ewan's Cause at home that a couple of my friends and I started in memory of one of our friends' son who passed away. And we went home, or I went home and met them. We played 99 holes in one day, walking, carrying our bags, which nearly killed us. And we put a prize up that, luckily for me, Intercontinental, Qatar, not Qatar Airways, they couldn't, Turkish Airlines, and who else was it? Education City Golf Club put up a prize of a trip for 2 people for 3 or 4 nights to play in the European Tour Pro-Am, which was a huge prize. And we got a couple of guys from Scotland won the auction and came out. And one of those guys said something really interesting to me. He's successful. He's had a line of businesses. And I've known a lot of people to say negative things about him. And it's only because, now I can see it's only because they wanted it. He had restaurants, he had clubs, he had recruitment companies. And I don't, did you meet the guys that came out? I can't remember if you did. I think so. So Tom was a slightly older guy, and member of Loch Lomond, member of Castle Stewart, all these prestigious golf clubs. And I said to him over a curry one night, why do you not bother? Why does it not affect you, all this negative press that your local friends and colleagues give you? And he just said, I don't care. None of these guys, excuse my terminology, but he just said, none of these guys have the balls to try and do what I do. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But maybe 1 out of 10 things will pay off. And at least I gave that a go. And I said, well, maybe that's the way to look at it. These guys want to be jealous because they don't have the balls to turn around and make a decision. Now, some of them can't. Maybe they've got family and kids and things that restrict them from making a decision like we have. I was lucky that I came here with myself and a suitcase and a bag of golf clubs. But yeah, it does make me wonder sometimes, what do we do to deserve that? But I think it's just jealousy. And there really isn't that much to be jealous of. Everything's relative. Yeah, maybe the salaries are a bit better, the weather's a bit better, but still hard work. We're still thousands of miles away from our friends and family that is difficult to deal with.
And a choice that we've made. You know, that we're not saying, oh, woe is us, we've made that choice, we've done this, but we're also in a country where, from business owner perspective or country manager perspective, our responsibilities are our staff, and they are our liabilities as well as our personal.
Absolutely.
So, you know, the people that get paid first are definitely not us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's what I say, and I was told that again. Excuse me. A lot of the advice that I always come back to is, I can't actually remember who it was that told me, but you don't run. In fact, it was Martin Ahern, the Irish lad that used to be here, who's left. He said you don't manage your business. If you're in any management role, you just manage your employees, and they will manage your business for you. That's really what we're there to do. Yeah, we have to make decisions, and we have to meet people and do things officially. But all in all, if you've got a team of well-trained, positive, enthusiastic staff, then you have to have a successful business if your product is good enough also. But
yes,
that's first and foremost, is making sure the staff are looked after that way.
Blair, we've had a very diverse conversation. Really enjoyed it.
That's good.
It's always good to catch up. An hour and 40 minutes later.
I know. That's so two Scottish guys together. You just ramble.
Well, I know. Can you imagine we were in Hudson's right now? We would have gone for 3 hours and 40 minutes, which we have done many a time. But we're gonna call it there. Stay on the line. Stay on the call, and we'll finish the episode. This will be going out Wednesday, the 27th of May. Just before we end, how can people get in contact with Prosports and Blair Harvey?
Through me, straight to my email, so blair@prosports.ae, for anything, whether it's for business or whether it's just for a chat. Anything that's come up that we've spoken about in terms of employment out here or experiences, I'm happy to share anything. But in terms of business and product, especially towards golf, then that great power of social media. If you go to Doha Golf Club or Education City Golf Club, or we've also got Prosports on Instagram, just drop us a message or comment on anything, and we'll get back to you. But
awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to be a part.
No, thank you. Really enjoyed it. We'll carry on another chat in just a second, but for now, Blair Harvey, thank you very much for your time. And let's hit the stop recording button.